My mother handed my bride a used napkin instead of a wedding gift in front of 300 guests. Everyone laughed. My wife just smiled and said, "Thank you." She knew something my family didn't. 20 minutes later, a black car pulled up outside, and my mother's face went white. My name is Callum Whitfield, and before I tell you what happened at my own wedding, I need you to understand who I was before that night. Because the man standing at that altar wasn't the same man who walked out of that reception. I grew up in a house where love came with conditions, where my mother, Delphine, measured people by the size of their bank account before she ever bothered learning their name. I didn't see it back then. I just thought that was normal. Rich people problems, I guess. Then I met Wren. She was nothing like the women my mother paraded in front of me at charity galas. Wren worked as a school nurse. She drove a car with 200,000 miles on it and never once apologized for it. She laughed with her whole chest, and when she talked about her grandfather, the man who raised her after her parents passed, her voice would soften in a way that made my chest ache. "He's not really a party person," she told me once early on. "Doesn't like being the center of attention, never has." I remember thinking it was sweet, a quiet old man, probably lonely, probably struggling. I never asked more. Looking back, I should have. The first time I brought Wren home, my mother's smile didn't reach her eyes, not once. She asked Wren where she summered. Wren said, "Wherever my grandfather's porch is." Delphine laughed like it was a joke. It wasn't. At our engagement dinner, my sister Fenella made a comment about budget weddings loud enough for the whole table to hear. Wren didn't flinch. She just squeezed my hand under the table and kept eating her dinner like nothing happened. That was Wren. Steady, unshaken, like she already knew something the rest of us didn't. I should have paid more attention to that calm. Because 2 nights before the wedding, Wren got a phone call. She stepped outside to take it. When she came back in, she had this look on her face. Soft, almost emotional, and she just said, "Everything's going to be okay, Cal." I asked what she meant. She just smiled and kissed me. I let it go. I had no idea that quiet confidence, that unshakable peace, was about to walk through the doors of my wedding reception and change everything my family thought they knew about power, money, and who really deserved to be underestimated. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before my alarm, just laid there, staring at the ceiling, feeling this nervous excitement in my chest. Today, I was marrying Wren. Nothing else was supposed to matter. But my mother had other plans. By 8 a.m., Delphine was already at the venue, adjusting the seating chart. She moved Wren's side of the family to the back corner near the kitchen doors. When the coordinator asked why, she just said, "Better flow for service." I found out later she'd also forgotten to add Wren's family name to the welcome sign at the entrance. Just left it off, like they didn't exist. I wanted to say something. Wren stopped me with a hand on my arm. "Not today," she said. "Let's not give her that." I didn't understand how she could stay so calm, but I trusted her. Then, right before the ceremony, I saw her phone light up, a text. She read it, and this small, private smile crossed her face, the kind of smile you get when you know a secret nobody else does. I asked her what it was. "Nothing," she said. "Just good news." She tucked the phone away before I could ask more. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I mean that. Standing there, watching her walk down the aisle in that dress, holding flowers her grandfather had picked out himself, I forgot about the seating chart, the missing sign, all of it. We said our vows. Her voice shook a little. Mine did too. For a few minutes, it was just us. No family drama, no games. I remember thinking, nothing can ruin this. I was wrong. The reception hadn't even started yet. The reception was warm at first, laughing, dancing, toasts that actually made me cry a little. Then my mother stood up, tapping her glass. "I have a little gift for the bride," she said, smiling that smile I'd learned to fear. She handed Wren a small wrapped box. The room went quiet, watching. Wren opened it slowly and pulled out a used napkin, wrinkled, lipstick stains on it. My mother had actually wrapped garbage and called it a gift. For a second, nobody breathed. Then Fenella's friends started laughing, this ugly, snickering laugh that spread across a few tables. My face went hot. I stood up, ready to say something I couldn't kick back. Wren touched my hand, stopped me cold. She looked at my mother, calm as still water, and said, "Thank you. It reminds me where I came from." Then she sat back down, dignity fully intact, like she'd just won something the rest of the room didn't understand yet. My mother sat down too, smug, thinking she'd made her point. I sat there shaking, furious, humiliated, wondering how the woman I loved could stay so composed while my own family tried to tear her apart in front of 300 people. I didn't know it yet, but Wren wasn't just being gracious. She was waiting. About 20 minutes after the napkin incident, I heard it before I saw it. The low hum of an engine outside. Tires crunching slow over the gravel drive. I didn't think much of it. Just another late guest, I figured. Then I noticed the hotel staff moving different, faster, straighter backs. The venue manager, who'd barely said 2 words to me all night, suddenly rushed toward the entrance himself, adjusting his jacket like his job depended on the next 60 seconds. Guests near the windows started murmuring. Phones came out. "Is that?" someone whispered. The doors opened, and in walked a man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, silver hair, calm eyes, the kind of presence that didn't need to raise his voice to fill a room. I didn't recognize him. Wren did. She stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped and walked straight into his arms. "Grandpa Brahm," she whispered, and I swear her voice cracked with love I'd never heard before. I looked at my mother. Her smile was gone, completely gone. She was staring at the signet ring on his hand, then at the hotel manager practically bowing beside him, and I watched the color drain out of her face in real time. "Delphine," Brahm said, voice steady, almost gentle. "It's been a while." He knew her name. My stomach dropped because in that moment I realized this quiet old man Wren always described as someone who didn't like parties, wasn't hiding from the world because he had nothing. He was hiding because he had everything. And my mother, without knowing it, had just insulted the one man in that entire building who owned the ground she was standing on. Bram didn't shout. He didn't need to. He just turned, slow and deliberate, and let his eyes move across the room until they landed on my mother. "This hotel," he said, "the ballroom you're standing in, the caterers who made tonight's dinner, all mine, have been for 11 years. Delphine opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "I also understand," Bram continued, "there was a gift exchange earlier. A napkin, I heard." His voice stayed calm, but the room went dead silent. "My granddaughter didn't grow up with much, but she grew up knowing her worth. Something money apparently couldn't teach some people." My mother's face went red, then pale again. She stood, stammering an apology that came out broken and small, nothing like the woman who'd humiliated my wife 20 minutes earlier. Fenella slipped quietly toward the exit, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Then Bram turned to the venue manager. Whatever balance remains on tonight's bill, wave it, my gift to the couple." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father, who'd been holding that remaining balance over me like leverage for months, looked like he'd been slapped without anyone touching him. I stood up then, really stood up, for the first time all night. "Enough, Mom," I said, voice shaking but sure. "You don't get to do this to her, not anymore." The room was quiet, but for the first time all night, it felt like justice. Later that night, after most of the guests had gone, I found Wren outside on the balcony, the string lights glowing behind her. I wrapped my arms around her, and for a while we just stood there, breathing. "You knew this whole time?" I whispered. She nodded. "Grandpa always said, let people show you who they are first." Bram joined us a few minutes later, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Take care of her," he said quietly. "She's carried enough on her own." Months passed. My relationship with my mother stayed distant but honest, boundaries she finally learned to respect. Delphine even reached out eventually, smaller, humbler, trying. Now, when I look at our wedding photo, Wren laughing, sunlight on her face, I don't see that napkin anymore. I see the night quiet strength finally got the respect it always deserved. Looking back, I think about how close I came to becoming my mother. But Wren taught me something I'll never forget. Real strength doesn't need to raise its voice. It waits patiently until the truth reveals itself. Bram didn't storm in seeking revenge. He just stood beside his granddaughter and let the truth speak. That's the kind of husband I want to be, one who protects with calm, not cruelty. If this story moved you, if you believe kindness always outlasts arrogance, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this one, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my shoes? Because sometimes karma doesn't shout. It just walks in quietly and changes everything.